You ever watch a play and think, did he just bend the rules or the rules bend to him? Aaron Rodgers gave us one of those moments, a split-second piece of quarterback trickery that turned what looked like a sack and fumble into an incomplete pass, kept the Steelers alive for a field goal, and set Twitter on fire. The initial on-field ruling was a forced fumble recovered by Rashan, but after a review, the call was reversed. Incomplete pass. SI. If you slow the clip down, it's uncanny. Rodgers is hit from behind, his legs start to go, and with defenders yanking him down, he snaps his arm forward. Not quite a full bullet to a receiver, but a clear throwing motion toward where Jaylen Warren is blocking. The ball bounces off the turf near Warren's feet and taken by the refs as an incomplete pass instead of a loose ball. That one judgment, whether the ref sees a forward throwing motion or a lost grip equals fumble, changed possession, field position, and the whole emotional momentum for that drive. Daily Snark. Let's unpack the mechanics and the rulebook, because that's where the argument lives. Intentional grounding exists, so quarterbacks can't just chuck the ball away to avoid sacks without consequence. The official NFL definition says a passer under imminent pressure can be penalized if he throws a forward pass that is not in the direction and vicinity of an eligible receiver, unless certain exceptions apply, like being outside the pocket or throwing past the line of scrimmage. In short, if a receiver is in the area, a forward motion that lands nearby can legally be ruled an incomplete pass. The refs judged Rodgers' motion and the ball's trajectory as meeting that standard. NFL football operations. So was Rodgers clever or exploiting a loophole? Fans split the room. One camp saw it as pure veteran craft, high IQ improvisation in a moment when holding the ball would have meant lost yards, turnover risk, and possibly a momentum swing. The other camp saw it as gaming the spirit of the rule. The pass was tossed where his running back wasn't expecting to catch it, and the action felt like a designed wiggle through the edge of legality. The internet's reaction boiled down to this. QBs have been throwing it away forever, but doing it toward the feet of a nearby blocker makes the call feel convenient. Reddit context matters. This wasn't Aaron Rodgers pulling some textbook trick in garbage time. It was a tone-setting moment in a tight primetime game, Rodgers' first return to face his old team, and the play occurred with momentum balanced on a knife's edge. Officials overturning the on-field fumble to an incomplete pass gave Pittsburgh a fresh chance to march, convert, and kick. The practical result was 3 points instead of a turnover and possession swing. Small in the box score? Maybe. In-game gravity? Huge. SI, let's also be honest about why we see this play differently depending on who we cheer for. If you're a Steelers fan, every fraction of a yard matters. A sack equals a net loss and a sliver more pressure on the defense. If you're a Rodgers fan, it's elegant damage control. Use your brain, avoid the blow, and keep your offense alive. This is why the same clip can be a clever escape move to one person and a rules chase to another. That duality is the theater of the NFL. Beauty and grievance live on the same highlight reel. Reddit. There's also precedent. The league has long allowed replay to judge whether a quarterback was in the act of throwing. If his arm is moving forward and he demonstrates control of the ball, replay can rule an apparent fumble an incomplete pass. The so-called tuck rule, drama lives in NFL lore for a reason. These moments are razor close and often end up decided not by intent but by physics and camera angles. Rodgers' motion looked enough like a throw on replay for the official to buy the incomplete call angle. Football zebras. What does this mean beyond the 2-minute debate thread? For coaches and play callers, it's a reminder that every micro option matters. QBs will throw the ball into the ground near an eligible receiver to avoid sacks when they can. Defenses and replay officials will keep watching where the throw lands, how the QB's arm moves, and whether the receiver was in position. If this play leads to conversations among rules committees or even clarifications to the intentional grounding guidance, it's because moments like this highlight the gray area the NFL has to manage between protecting players and preserving competitive fairness. Football zebras. And for Aaron Rodgers, the optics are deliciously on brand. The veteran outfoxes contact with the same football IQ that defined his prime. He's not the immovable magician he once was, but he's still a chess player when the board gets chaotic. For Jordan Love and the Packers, who tied a franchise completion streak and wound up winning, this weird, controversial play is a tiny footnote compared to the broader narrative of the night. But for highlight compilers and hot take merchants, it's the kind of clip that fuels endless micro arguments. SI, if you want my 2 cents, this is part of football's DNA. Split-second improvisation judged in slow motion for hours. Rules should aim to be clear, but there will always be plays that live on a knife edge of interpretation. Rodgers executed within those margins. The league reviewed it and sided with him. Fans will scream cheat while others cheer savvy. Both reactions are valid and both feed the sport they love. SI final image to carry with you. Watch the replay, freeze on Rodgers' arm as he's being dragged down, notice the arc and where the ball hits the turf, then picture the referees huddling with replay and making a call that changed a drive. That split-second judgment, whether you call it genius or gamesmanship, is exactly the kind of moment that keeps the NFL's rulebook open and the debates loud. Daily Snark, clip idea for the video, start with the live call showing the fumble recovery, smash cut to slow-mo of Rodgers' arm motion, then overlay the rule text about receiver in the area while fan reactions and pundit takes cycle across the screen. End on Rodgers' face, calm, cunning, unbothered. Aaron Rodgers pulled off a little bit of magic and a little bit of gamesmanship late in Sunday's Packers game, and it left the NFL fan base split between admiration, eye rolls, and that can't be legal. Here's exactly what happened, why the refs ruled it an incomplete pass, and what it means going forward. On the play, Rodgers was getting chased and looked like he was about to be sacked around midfield. As a defender grabbed him and he went to the ground, Rodgers made a throwing motion and the ball popped loose near the feet of his running back Jaylen Warren. The on-field crew initially ruled it a fumble recovered by the Packers' Rashan. Then, after review, the call was reversed to an incomplete forward pass. That reversal erased a turnover and gave the Steelers back the ball. SI, why the reversal is defensible under the rules. Intentional grounding exists to stop QBs from just chucking the ball away to escape sacks while giving up no penalty. But the rule's definition hinges on two things. One, whether the passer was in the pocket, and two, whether the pass was thrown toward the vicinity of an eligible receiver. If a passer releases a forward pass that lands in the area where a targeted eligible receiver can reasonably make a play, it's an incomplete pass, not grounding, even if the throw was wildly off target or the receiver wasn't in position to actually catch it. The NFL rulebook makes clear that a forward pass in the direction and vicinity of a receiver is an incomplete pass, not necessarily grounding. Operations.nfl.com. What the replay showed, and why crews can reasonably call it incomplete, slow motion angles make it look like Rodgers' arm came forward and the ball left his hand in a throwing motion, not a pure strip. Crucially, the ball went forward and landed in the neighborhood of Warren, an eligible receiver. Review officials therefore had a plausible rule-based path to overturn the fumble and rule incomplete. That's the narrow technical read that wins in replay rooms. SI. So why are fans furious? It comes down to intent and spirit of the rule versus letter of the rule arguments. To a lot of viewers, the play looked like a classic duck and chuck, a hurried fling with no realistic chance of completion, intended solely to avoid losing yardage on a sack. Critics argue that because Warren was preoccupied pass blocking and not in a position to catch the ball, Rodgers effectively exploited a loophole. He created the appearance of an attempt while manufacturing an incomplete instead of a fumble. That's what people mean when they say he found a sneaky way around the rule. On the flip side, veteran QBs improvise. Quarterbacks have for decades done everything from lob the ball behind the line to toss it off their foot to make a play look forward. The rule is written around vicinity and eligible receiver, and officials are bound by the text. If a forward ball goes near an eligible receiver, even if that receiver isn't ready, replay can and often does treat that as an incomplete pass. In other words, Rodgers played inside the rulebook, not outside it. Operations.nfl.com. Why this matters beyond the highlight reel. These are not just split-second judgment calls. They change games. A reverse turnover is a drive saved, momentum preserved, and potentially a few points on the board. For the Steelers, that one reversal altered the scoreboard calculus in a game that slipped away in the fourth quarter. For the league, it's the kind of play that prompts chatter about whether the intentional grounding language still matches today's improvisational quarterback play. SI. SI, could the rule be tightened? Sure, the NFL could clarify vicinity thresholds or add a provision that an eligible receiver must be in a reasonable position to actually make a play on the ball, not just nominally an eligible target. But rule changes come slowly, and the league usually prefers to let precedent accumulate before rewriting language that could create new unintended consequences. For now, it's on officials to interpret and on coaches to coach for it. Operations.nfl.com. What teams can learn tactically? If you're a QB or coach, you want to practice the legal version of throwing it away, selling the pass to an eligible target, keeping the ball trajectory convincingly forward, and avoiding the appearance of a pure strip. If you're a defense, you should put pressure on the QB every play and then swarm the ball on forced turnovers. Sometimes a strip will stick, sometimes replay won't. For officiating crews, consistent application is the immediate requirement. Pick a standard and stick to it game to game so teams and fans know what to expect. Finally, the human angle. Rodgers is a veteran who knows the fine print of the game better than most. Plays like this are part craft, part survival. Some call it clever, others call it cheating the spirit. Both reactions are understandable. What we can say for sure is this: the play was a textbook example of how modern QB improvisation and the letter of the law can collide on national TV, and it will be debated on sports feeds until the rulebook is either tested again or rewritten. If you want the very short take, Rodgers made a legal, if controversial, play inside the rulebook. Fans will argue about the ethics, the league will weigh clarity versus precedent, and coaches will either teach the trick or teach how to defend against it.